You know what's funny? People can watch you bleed for years, but the moment you start healing without them, they feel threatened. They can't stand the sight of you smiling anymore, especially when that smile has nothing to do with them. It burns them quietly, silently, deeply, because for so long they fed their ego with this belief that you needed them to feel whole. They told themselves your happiness came from their presence, their validation, their little moments of attention. They thought they were the sun of your world, the center of your joy, the oxygen you couldn't survive without. But now they're watching you glow on your own, and it's eating them alive, because your light, your peace, your calm, it's exposing something they never wanted to face. They were never the source of your strength. They were only the distraction from it. And that realization, that's their slow, painful punishment. And your quiet, unshakable victory. They tried to break you, but you built yourself. You walk lighter now. Your voice carries power. Your laugh is real, not forced. And your silence, that has become the sharpest weapon you've ever held. They look at you and wonder, how did someone we tried to break rebuild themselves into something stronger, something calmer, something untouchable? Because they were certain, absolutely convinced, that the moment they left, your world would collapse. But instead, your peace turned into an empire. Your solitude became your foundation. Your healing became your crown. They're not angry because you grew. They're angry because you grew without them. You stopped chasing, and they lost control. Remember how you used to be? You texted first. You checked on them first. You worried first. You cared first. You apologized first. You held on even when they pushed away. But now your silence is louder than any message you ever sent. You don't explain yourself anymore. You don't defend your emotions. You don't justify your value. You simply withdrew your energy. And the moment you did that, they felt something they never expected: powerless. Because the truth is, they didn't lose you the day you walked away. They lost you the day you stopped reacting. You stopped bleeding for people who wouldn't even bandage your wounds. The same silence that once hurt you now protects you. They hate this version of you, not because you're cold, but because you're calm. Not because you're distant, but because you're self-controlled. Not because you don't care, but because you don't care about them. And that level of indifference, they can't compete with it. You're not angry. You're not resentful. You're not trying to prove anything. You're just healed. And a healed person is the one thing they never learned how to handle. They scroll through your life from the shadows, watching, comparing, regretting, wondering if you ever think about them. But the part that destroys them is this: you don't. Not out of hatred, not out of revenge, not out of pride. Just evolution, just growth, just peace. You outgrew the version of you that needed them. They still tell themselves you changed, that you became heartless, that you became different, but they won't say why. They won't talk about the nights you cried quietly, trying to understand what you did wrong. They won't mention how often you forgave what should have been unacceptable. They won't say how many times they made you feel like your emotions were too much, because admitting all of that would force them to accept the truth. They created the version of you that doesn't need them anymore. You learned the art of detachment, not because you became cold, but because you became wise. Not everyone who touches your heart deserves a permanent place in it. Some people only come to teach you the strength of walking away. You didn't just move on, you moved up. Your life now, it looks calm, balanced, stable, focused. You're leveling into a version of yourself that is dangerously unstoppable. Your self-worth is no longer up for negotiation. Your attention is no longer cheap. Your peace is no longer for sale. You don't chase validation. You don't seek permission. You don't explain your growth. You're becoming what they feared the most. A person who is at peace with themselves. A person they can no longer manipulate. A person they can no longer access. They watch you like a ghost from their past. When the world goes dark and their room is quiet, that's when they think of you the most. They check your profile, not out of love, but out of regret. Every post, every picture, every moment of peace you display, it cuts them deeper than any revenge ever could, because they're finally realizing the thing you tried to show them from the start. You didn't need them to be happy. You only needed to let them go. Your growth made them face themselves. You healed without announcing it. You disappeared to repair and returned glowing, quietly, effortlessly, powerfully. That silence, that evolution, that distance, it terrifies them, because real healing doesn't make noise, it makes boundaries. And every boundary you build became a reminder of every moment they failed to protect your heart. Every time you smile now, they remember the times they made you cry. Every time you rise, they remember the moments they tried to break you. Karma doesn't always hit loudly. Sometimes it whispers, "Look at what you lost." They imagine texting you, but they won't. Sometimes they think about reaching out, to apologize, to reconnect, to test if you still care. But they don't. Not because they don't want you, but because deep down, they know something painful. The version of you they betrayed no longer exists. You became someone who doesn't need their apology to move on. Someone who doesn't need their presence to feel whole. You stopped needing closure because you realized you were the closure. You don't react, you outgrow. That's what confuses them the most. You don't fight. You don't argue. You don't offend yourself. You observe. You understand. You outgrow. They thought your kindness was weakness. They mistook your empathy for naivety. But you were never weak. You were patient. You were understanding. You were loyal. And once you stopped offering those things, the world suddenly felt colder to them. When your name comes up now, they fall silent. They remember how they treated you and how you walked away without looking back. That silence, that's their consequence. You didn't destroy them. You didn't seek revenge. You didn't fight back. You just left. And time did everything else. You were never the problem. You were the peace. And now they finally see it. You weren't the chaos. You were the calm. You weren't the burden. You were the blessing. You weren't the problem. You were the lesson. They weren't ready for your love, your loyalty, your depth, your consistency. And losing you is becoming the mirror they can't escape from. You didn't move on to hurt them. You moved on to heal yourself. And That quiet evolution, that unbothered strength, that peaceful power, is the revenge they can never recover from.